Hey, what's going on with YouTube?
What up, though?
This is SCO0320.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy Joe Johnson.
We are gonna be doing a review on American Sniper. We've seen a lot of interesting movies lately, Joe. We've seen Whiplash, American Sniper.
Yeah.
I saw Selma. You saw Taken 3. We're still gonna be looking at Birdman, and I looked at Foxcatcher last night. So it's a lot of movies that we're gonna probably be doing reviews for. So just bear with us. It's not that we haven't seen them. It's the fact that there's just a lot of stuff that we're gonna be talking about. But this movie, it did so well over the weekend, Joe. They ended up finding out that it had, I think, the biggest grossing for a weekend of any drama in history of cinema. In addition to that, it had a limited release initially, but then I think it grossed over, I can't remember if it was 100 million, but it did really good over the weekend. I think it broke a record for the January time slot for any movie period. So this movie has done really well, but I'm gonna read a synopsis real quick because we actually really enjoyed this movie and the story behind it. Navy SEAL sniper Chris Kyle, pinpoint accuracy saves countless lives on the battlefield and turns him into a legend. Back home to his wife and kids after a certain amount of time, however, Chris finds himself, even after war, he can't leave certain things behind. This movie was really well done. Clint Eastwood, he never disappoints. I mean, Gran Torino is still one of my favorite movies. Unforgiven is still one of my favorite movies. But with this one, it was a real careful touch on the perspective of the veteran as the military soldier, whether it be whatever branch the veteran would be, is they can look at this movie and they like, I've experienced this to a certain level, or I've seen one of my friends that's really close to me like have this happen to them. And to have the man that was well known for the most sniper kills in U.S. history, it was really notable performance by Bradley Cooper. So we'll go into the visuals. As far as the visuals for this one, I don't really like the cinematography because they kept on going back and forth placements of time for as far as Kyle, like taking place at the beginning with him as a kid, and then pointing to a certain point where he's like actually fighting in the midst of his first term, and it is really well shot. I never thought of a moment where this felt like a TV movie. A lot of these like war-driven movies, like when it's like this day and age versus like taking place in time, it always kind of feels like this is kind of like a documentary kind of feel to it. This one felt like you were in the midst with it. What did you feel about, I guess, the cinematography for this one, Joe?
I don't know. I think it did a good job. I don't think anything really. I like how. I think the only shots that really stood out to me, the shots were like, Bradley Cooper, you know, his character was like when he was prone, actually like in sniping positions, aiming his rifle. I think that was a unique perspective. But other than that, there's no real crazy camera shots that stood out to me. Yeah, the only shots that stood out to me was like when he's going prone. I think those are unique perspectives, especially like some of the nooks and crannies, like some of his sniper posts he was actually dug into. I think they had a good, they introduced like the viewer in those situations well. But other than that, I mean, nothing really stuck out to me.
Yeah, I think that like movies like Act of Valor, you know what I'm saying, like they were shot like with a first person perspective. I think that those are their own new brand of like war cinematography. I think those are really well done. But I think that for me with this one, I think when I saw him on the roof and he was in a situation kind of like the Hurt Locker, when in Hurt Locker, when he was actually trying to take care of a lot of the different things and trying to pick up the different devices or explosives, it was a really dangerous kind of feel to it. And that essence can only be shown through a third person perspective versus like a first person one. And I think when he was aiming down the sights, you find out that there's somebody else that's also on the enemy side that's also sniping point, and it's almost like they're targeting certain people that he really care about in the midst of some of this. I'm trying not to spoil too much, but those camera angles and the way that they pay attention to it, going back to like, there was a point where he was talking about him, like his training and stuff like that. That to me was paying homage to a lot of those classic war films that show like the person before they enter the roots. But this character is really different because he already had a devotion and a care to people. And I mean, just going off of how they did that with the visuals and going with the flashbacks, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I didn't think that it needed to be a spectacle too much. The music for this one, the soundtrack, was actually pretty decent as far as the score is concerned. I really enjoyed the score for this one as well. But the acting in it is, I guess, everything for this one. Because Bradley Cooper transformed himself. He added on, was it 40 to 60 pounds of muscle just for this one.
It was totally different.
He looked stacked. But, I mean, we've heard him play the voice of Rocket. We've heard him in Limitless being the smart aleck. We've seen him in like the A-Team just being just the crazy messed up person. And we've seen him in Hangover. He's always been like the city slicker. He's never been like the country boy, born and bred. And he was the country boy for this one. What did you take on his character or his acting performance in this one?
Completely, this is awesome. He looks like a totally different person in his role, man. He did a good job. Like, just the way he carried himself and the way he looked, man, he looked like a different person. Even in the beginning of the movie, they showed like how Chris Kyle, like they showed like his life before like he went into service. And even still, like Bradley Cooper played that role. I've never seen him in a role like this, and he did a really good job.
Yeah, because one thing about Kyle is like he didn't lash out. His character, the way he's portrayed, I'm not sure how accurate it is because this is all based on a true story. But they portrayed his character as not the one to just lash out and like try to do something to hurt his family. Even after coming out of like a couple terms, like he was dealing with PTSD and psychological imbalances, he still, even though he would have times and moments where he would just shut out, and Bradley Cooper embodies that. Like when you see the toll that the war is causing on him, or when he has to take a shot, for instance, like I think one of his first sniper kills, and he has to judge and assess whether or not to take this girl or her son out. You can tell in his demeanor and his presence, like they played attention to the flashbacks, because the flashbacks they showed him as a protector, him wanting to help his brother, and him being the one that didn't like to see anybody getting beat down on. So for him to go over the war, like it was like looking at what happened with 9/11 and seeing what happened, it provoked him to want to do something for his country and to be there for his country. He loves his country, but being over there and actually doing certain things, it's like it played and diminished him as the movie went on, and it was really interesting to watch. And I think even with that, countering would be his wife. Like the interaction with him and his wife, because his wife is a special, she's a special somebody, because she has to put up with every time he comes back from a term or every time that he's dealing with emotional issues. She has to deal with it because they have children and they have built a life for each other. And I think that Sienna Miller, she did a really good job for this one. I mean, I don't know how it could have been portrayed any other way, because they could have had any other person like just act out just to dramatify it for Hollywood purposes. But if this is how the character was portrayed, it was embodied that. It didn't feel as though they were overacting to sell a documentary. It felt like they embodied the characters, you know what I'm saying? If they didn't get one thing right, it was the dynamics between her and him and how he came out being one of the greatest snipers in American history. There was a lot of other actors in this one. One of the ones I thought was really interesting was his spotter. His spotter's name was Goat Winston. It was played by Kyle Gallner. I think it's Gallner. He played in The Flash. He played in a lot of other movies, but I'm talking about like the original Flash from Smallville movies. Like when Smallville was coming out and they actually introduced Flash for the first time, like he was so quick-witted and funny. But it was really interesting him being the spotter for his character, because his character kind of seemed like more of a Bradley Cooper kind of character. But it was just, I mean, the movie really is about Kyle trying to be who he's supposed to be, and like dealing with the fact of war, how that can make you either one, lose yourself, or it can make you be better. And I think by the end of the movie you see with his character his reasonings for his PTSD, or his reasoning for like sheltering himself from his family, or his reasoning for every single snipe kill meant something to him. There was a point where I think in the I'm not sure if you remember, Joe, when he decided to get off his post and he decided he needed to go down there and actually lead into trying to find these certain people. Like I was like, man, this dude, he seemed at first glance it seemed like he had a death wish. Yeah. But it's more than that. It was more than that. His devotion is more than that. And you don't find out the realness until there's a certain point, I think towards the end of the movie, where he's talking to a therapist and he really breaks down the reasons why he did a lot of the things that he did. And the performance is just amazing. What was your closing remarks on it?
He's had one line that was, there's one line, he came back from war, like one term, and like he was home, and he was talking to his wife, and he was like, he was home and he's trying to get used to being at home, but he was like, there are soldiers out there dying on the battlefield right now, and we're going around shopping at the mall. I listened to that line and I was like, wow. That took me aback. I was just blown away by that line. Like, that is the perspective of, you know, a war veteran. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Blew me away.
So I guess what we're trying to say is he became the character, Chris Kyle. He didn't just act it, he became it. In every kind of term of it. Because even, like, I think there was a scene that I saw where he was at home, he was with his boy, and he was trying to help his boy with something, and he heard a noise, and it's like it was almost an instant reaction. And he played it so well, but it was somebody just getting up to thank him for saving their life. And he was trying to thank him. He couldn't even accept it, because he was like, this is what we do. Like, we're brothers in arms. Like, it wasn't me. I'm not a hero, you know? And it's just an interesting look on a character and how they portrayed him in the movie, and the cinematography of how Clint Eastwood went with the scripting to keep it centralized, not try to over gratify him, but at the same time trying not to make this a documentary of like all the good things that kind of went through, and then even like a good ending. Like I just really thought it was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. If I had to give a rating, I'd probably give it maybe an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10. It's one of the better movies I've seen, and one of the better portrayals I've seen. The problem with this is the Oscars. Like, there's been a lot of great Best Actor awards, like, being nominated. Like, I mean, you got the person that plays Stephen Hawking in The Theory of Everything. You got Benedict Cumberbatch that played Alan Turing for Imitation Game. You got Michael Keaton as Birdman. You got this. And I mean, a lot of people wanted my perspective on why was not David Oyelowo nominated for Selma and his performance. I mean, there's so many good performances. Even like Steve Carell in the movie that I've been looking at, Foxcatcher. I mean, these are all amazing performances. So who will win? I have no idea. But that doesn't mean that this movie wasn't amazing. It doesn't take anything away from any of these guys' performances, because every person this year gave it their all. And it wasn't too many movies I've looked at that like, man, this acting was terrible. If anything, it was like scripted wrong, or there were certain times that drew away from the story arc too much. But generally, the performances this year have been just amazing. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. What would you give it? I guess
I give it a 9.
9 out of 10?
Yeah, give it a 9.
That's what's up, man. But yeah, that concludes our review for American Sniper. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please leave your comments below if you have any thought processes about it. If you've seen it the second time, if you brought somebody else. This movie would be really good to take somebody that you know is a veteran or is a soldier currently. Let them see it. Bring them with them so you can get a fresh perspective on their ideas on it. Y'all can talk about it. And at the same time, it pays homage to it. Like, it doesn't disgrace the name of anybody that was a soldier, which that's the main thing about any movie that I've seen Clint Eastwood do. Even when he did Flags of, what was it? I can't remember. Flags of Our Fathers? I can't remember which one it was. But it was a two-parter, and it had to do with a war theme. And Clint Eastwood, he does a really good job with that. So I'm surprised that he didn't get like nominated with the Golden Globes, but I knew that he was probably gonna get nominated for Best Director for this one. But yeah, best of luck to him, and hopefully y'all enjoyed our review. Please leave a like below. Subscribe, everybody, please, please.